Take a single fallen log, slide a strip of copper into the ground next to it, push a galvanized nail in nearby, give the spot one good soaking with the garden hose, and then walk away. Within days, something starts happening underground that almost nobody in modern agriculture talks about. The wood begins drinking water from the soil around it, swelling and storing moisture in its rotting cells like a hidden reservoir. Bacteria swarm into the decomposing fibers and start doing something biologists only formally confirmed in 2024. They release electrons, actual measurable electrical current flowing through the dirt generated by microbes eating wood. Meanwhile, the copper and the zinc are doing something else entirely. They are sitting in a moist, mineral-rich medium that has just become a slow, quiet battery, producing roughly 1 volt of steady direct current with no wires, no chemicals, and no maintenance. Roots respond to that voltage. Nutrients that were chemically locked in the soil are pulled free by the electrical activity. And this entire underground machine keeps running for years on materials you could find in a single trip around your backyard. No power bill, no batteries to replace, no bags of fertilizer to buy in spring, nothing to plug in. The strange part is not that this works. The strange part is how long it has been documented. We have records going back to 1841. Long before any of this was Instagram content, an ancient civilization in the Amazon built soils so productive that fields they enriched 2,000 years ago are still growing food today without a single bag of synthetic fertilizer. Farmers across Germany and Eastern Europe spent centuries quietly burying logs under their gardens and never needing irrigation. A Scottish clockmaker proved that the ground itself is a battery. And a Kentucky farmer used buried coils of metal to keep lights burning on his property 24 hours a day in a region where the nearest electrical grid was over the horizon. These are not separate eccentricities of history. They are 4 pieces of the same buried secret. A secret quietly erased by an industry that needed gardeners hungry, dependent, and coming back every spring with their wallets open. Over the next half hour, you are going to see exactly how the pieces fit together, what happens when you stack all 3 in a single garden bed, and why no garden center in your city has ever told you any of this is possible. The story starts with a piece of wood. Not a fancy piece, not specially treated, just a dead branch, a hunk of firewood that never made it to the fireplace, a section of an old fence post that finally fell over. Across Central and Eastern Europe, farmers have been burying wood beneath their growing beds for at least several centuries. The technique was popularized in the modern era by an Austrian mountain farmer named Sepp Holzer, who built his entire farm using this method at altitudes where everyone said it was impossible to grow food. But Holzer did not invent it, he recovered it. The practice itself had been passed down quietly through generations of European peasant farmers who never wrote it down, never published a manual, and never knew there were academic words for what they were doing. They simply observed. They piled logs. They watched plants explode out of the ground. The method, stripped down, could not be more simple. Dig a trench or stack logs directly on the ground. Pile branches, leaves and compost on top. Cover the entire mound with soil. Plant directly into the surface. A finished bed can stand anywhere from 2 feet to 6 feet high, depending on how aggressive you want to get with it. There are only a few rules on wood selection that you absolutely have to follow. Use untreated hardwoods. Maple, oak, birch, alder, and most fruit woods are excellent. Avoid pressure-treated lumber at all costs, because it is preserved with arsenic and copper compounds that will leach straight into your soil and into your food. Stay away from anything painted, stained, or finished. Avoid black walnut, which secretes a chemical compound that suppresses or kills most garden vegetables, and skip cedar and redwood, which contain natural preservatives that resist decomposition and stall the entire process for years. The best wood is wood that has already started to soften and crumble. The more rotten when you bury it, the faster the underground machine starts running. What happens next is the part that makes the entire system worth building. Buried wood absorbs water. A lot of water. A single log can hold 3 to 5 times its own weight in moisture once it begins to decay. When it rains, the wood soaks up the runoff and stores it deep underground, where the sun cannot evaporate it back into the air. When the weather turns dry, that stored moisture wicks slowly outward, feeding the roots above it without anyone touching a hose. Gardeners who build these beds, tall enough and dense enough consistently, report that they stop watering after the second growing season. Read that sentence again. A garden that no longer needs irrigation, no drip lines, no timers, no water meter spinning, just gravity, wood, and patience. In dry climate places like Southern California and Arizona, gardeners have inverted the technique and buried the wood instead of mounding it. The result is the same. The wood holds the water. The plants drink when they need it. But moisture is only part of the magic. The decomposition process throws off heat as a byproduct. Billions of microbes inside the rotting wood are essentially digesting cellulose and lignin, and digestion produces thermal energy. The interior of an active buried woodbed runs noticeably warmer than the surrounding soil all season long. That means planting season starts weeks earlier on these beds because the root zone is already warm when nearby beds are still cold and soggy. It also means frost-tender crops survive deeper into autumn because the core of the bed is still releasing heat after the first cold nights. Sepp Holzer used exactly this effect to grow lemons and figs in the Austrian Alps. The same effect works in your backyard. The wood also does one more thing, and this is the part that links it to every other technology in this video. As fungi and bacteria break it down, they form an enormous, living, electrically active community in the soil. Mushroom threads weave through the rotting fibers. Worms move in. The decomposing wood becomes a habitat, a permanent address, for the entire underground biology that does the actual work of feeding your plants. And in early 2024, a team at Northwestern University finally took something most gardeners never imagined and built it into a piece of working laboratory equipment. The Northwestern team, led by researcher Bill Yen and senior author George Wells, published a paper in early 2024 describing a device about the size of a paperback book. They called it a soil microbial fuel cell. It worked by capturing the electrons released by ordinary soil bacteria as they decomposed organic carbon. The team demonstrated that the device could run continuously, in real outdoor conditions, in both wet and dry soil, and could power small wireless sensors indefinitely. Their conclusion, stated plainly in their published findings, was that as long as there is organic carbon in the soil for the microbes to break down, the fuel cell can essentially last forever. The technology is not new. The first soil microbial fuel cells were demonstrated as early as 1911. What was new was a design that finally worked reliably outside of a controlled laboratory. Now think about what this means in the context of your garden. A buried woodbed is, at the underground level, a continuously fueled microbial fuel cell. The bacteria are eating the wood. The wood is providing the organic carbon. Electrons are being released. The soil is conducting current. This is not theory. This is documented science from a major engineering university. Every gardener with rotting wood underneath their bed has been operating an unintentional power plant. Now move 5,000 miles south into the Amazon basin. Buried in the rainforest soil of pre-Columbian Brazil, archaeologists have spent decades documenting deposits of dark, black, almost ink-colored earth that should not exist. The Amazon's natural soil is famously poor. Tropical heat breaks down organic matter so quickly that nothing accumulates. Modern conventional agriculture in the Amazon usually exhausts the ground within 1 or 2 seasons. Yet scattered through the rainforest are pockets of soil that have remained extraordinarily fertile for over 2,000 years. The dark earth runs as deep as 6.5 feet. It contains several times more carbon than the surrounding jungle floor. Local farmers still mine it and sell it in Brazilian markets as premium garden soil. For decades, scientists argued about whether this was a natural anomaly or something else. Then they started finding fish bones, pottery fragments, and unmistakable traces of intentional charcoal woven through every sample. The soil was not natural. It had been built. Indigenous Amazonian civilizations had engineered it on purpose, taking wood, baking it in low oxygen pits to produce stable charcoal, then crushing the charcoal and mixing it into their garden plots, along with food waste, fish remains, and animal manure. Generation after generation, they layered the practice. The result was a soil so resilient that 2,000 years and a complete change of civilization could not erase it. The key ingredient was the charcoal. The modern word for it is biochar. And the property that makes biochar one of the most powerful soil amendments ever discovered comes down to one absurd number. A single gram of high-quality biochar contains up to 9,000 square feet of internal surface area. That is not a typo. Under a microscope, biochar looks like a honeycomb of microscopic chambers, tunnels, and pores carved into pure carbon. If you could unfold and lay flat the internal surfaces of just a few grams, they would cover a small house. That cavernous architecture creates housing for billions of microbes. It buffers acidic soils toward a neutral pH that crops prefer. It holds water in sandy soils that would otherwise drain in hours. It opens up clay soils that would otherwise suffocate roots. And critically for everything you are about to build, biochar is electrically active. Its surface carries a strong negative charge from oxygen-containing chemical groups left over from the burning process. That charge acts like a magnet for positively charged nutrient ions. Calcium, potassium, magnesium, ammonium, zinc, all the things plants need, get pulled toward the biochar and held in the root zone instead of leaching away in the next rain. Multiple peer-reviewed studies have also documented that biochar measurably increases the electrical conductivity of any soil you add it to. The dirt literally conducts current better, which becomes important the moment you introduce the third and final piece of this puzzle. In January of 1841, a self-taught Scottish clockmaker named Alexander Bain filed a patent in London for an electric clock driven by an electromagnetic pendulum. In his refined designs, he proposed something almost no one in his time took seriously. He proposed eliminating chemical batteries entirely by burying two sheets of dissimilar metal in moist soil, connecting them with a wire above ground, and letting the chemistry of the earth itself produce the electricity. He used zinc and copper planted about a meter apart, buried a couple of feet down. The arrangement generated a steady 1 volt of direct current. The chemistry is straightforward. Zinc is more chemically reactive than copper. When both metals sit in a medium full of dissolved ions, the zinc starts shedding electrons. Those electrons travel through the wire to the copper, completing a circuit. The wet soil acts as the electrolyte, carrying ions between the two plates and keeping the reaction running. Every dissolved mineral and organic acid in the groundwater participates. Wetter soil means stronger current. Mineral-rich soil means longer life. Bain used the current to keep his clock running. No springs, no winding, no maintenance. Just current drawn quietly from the ground beneath the clock case. Within a few decades, telegraph companies across Britain had adopted similar earth-grounded circuits to slash the amount of copper wire needed for long-distance signaling. Buried metal plates became standard equipment at telegraph stations. Engineers documented that aligning the plates roughly north to south with the planet's natural geomagnetic field slightly improved output. Driving the zinc deeper than the copper helped too. The grass growing directly above some of these buried lines was reportedly different from the grass on either side. Darker, thicker, taller. The observation was noted and then largely forgotten. Telegraph workers had bigger things to think about. Nobody connected the green grass to the metals beneath it. Nobody ran the experiment. Nobody sent a paper to a botanical journal. The hint sat in the ground and waited. A Kentucky farmer named Nathan Stubblefield was probably the only person of his era who took the earth battery as far as it could go. In May of 1898, Stubblefield received United States patent number 600,457 for an electrolytic coil of iron and insulated copper wire intended to be buried in soil or immersed in liquid. He insisted, against the standard interpretation of his patent, that his device was not generating energy chemically. He believed it was tapping into electrical currents already flowing through the earth. Whatever the actual mechanism, the device worked. Stubblefield used it on his farm in Murray, Kentucky, to power lighting and to demonstrate something that nobody else in his decade was demonstrating. In 1892, well before Marconi's famous transatlantic signal, Stubblefield was already transmitting clear human voice wirelessly through the ground using paired buried electrodes. He gave public demonstrations on the town square of Murray. He demonstrated ship-to-shore voice transmission from a steamboat on the Potomac River in 1902. National newspapers covered the demonstrations. In 1991, the governor of Kentucky issued an official proclamation declaring Stubblefield the true inventor of radio. Stubblefield himself never commercialized his work successfully. He became increasingly paranoid in later life, refused to share his refined designs, and was eventually found dead in a small cabin near his farm. His patent is still on file. The coil design still produces measurable current when properly buried. The man who proved the principle was effectively erased from the standard history of electronics. 3 discoveries, 3 forms of energy, all buried in the ground, all available for free. Rotting wood stores water, generates heat, and produces a biological electrical current as microbes feed on organic carbon. Biochar holds nutrients in place with electrical charge, hosts microbial life for centuries, and measurably increases the conductivity of any soil it touches. Zinc and copper produce a steady voltage from nothing but moist earth, mobilizing chemically locked nutrients through the very current they generate. The crucial part is what happens when you put all 3 in the same bed. They do not just coexist, they reinforce each other. The biochar increases the conductivity of the soil, which strengthens the voltage and current produced by the zinc and copper. The electrical activity mobilizes nutrient ions, which the biochar promptly catches and holds in the root zone. The rotting wood feeds organic carbon to the microbes that produce biological electricity, while the biochar gives those microbes a permanent place to live. Water stored by the wood keeps the entire system moist enough for both the galvanic chemistry and the microbial fuel cell to keep operating year-round. Take any one component away and the system still works. Combine all 3 and you get a soil ecosystem that improves every year instead of depleting. So, why has none of this been mainstreamed? Why is none of it sitting on the shelf at your garden center? The answer is not a conspiracy in the traditional sense. The answer is economics. In 1909, 2 German chemists named Fritz Haber and Carl Bosch cracked the puzzle of synthesizing ammonia from atmospheric nitrogen at industrial scale. By 1913, the first commercial plant was operating in Germany. For the first time in human history, soil fertility could be poured out of a bag instead of built up over years through manure, rotation, or composting. American spending on synthetic fertilizer grew from roughly $300 million in 1945 to over $3 billion by 1975. The business model was elegant. Fertilizer runs out. Plants pull nitrogen and phosphorus from the soil. Farmers buy more next season. Every acre, every spring, another invoice. A permanent solution buried once in the ground, costing almost nothing, producing soil that improved over time, had no place in that economy. It was not actively suppressed. It was something more effective than suppression. It was made commercially irrelevant. The British Ministry of Agriculture did run a serious investigation into electrical methods between 1918 and 1936. The committee ultimately concluded their results were too inconsistent to recommend the practice at industrial scale. But notably, the committee was working with high-voltage atmospheric electricity, not the simple galvanic chemistry of buried metals, and not in combination with charcoal or buried wood. Their negative conclusion was about a specific application of electricity, not the entire concept. Meanwhile, dark earth soils in the Amazon that were built before the Roman Empire collapsed are still producing food today. Multi-year field studies on biochar continue to show that a single application improves soil pH, carbon retention, and nutrient availability for at least a decade with no replenishment. Buried wood beds that practitioners have documented over the past several decades continue producing crops without irrigation or fertilizer well past the 10-year mark. The proof is everywhere it was ever planted. Now, here is how to actually build this in your own garden. 3 methods, in order of complexity. Each one works on its own. Combined, they produce something none of them can do alone. Method 1. The buried wood bed. Collect dead logs, fallen branches, untreated wood scraps, anything that fits the safe species guidelines we already covered. Dig a trench roughly 2 feet deep, or alternatively build directly on top of the ground if digging is impractical for your soil. Lay the largest logs along the bottom. Pack smaller branches and twigs into the gaps so there are no major air pockets, which can otherwise collapse and pull your plants down with them later. Top it with a layer of nitrogen-rich green material, things like fresh grass clippings, kitchen scraps, fresh manure, or coffee grounds. This is the layer most beginners skip, and it is the layer that determines whether your first growing season succeeds or fails. Without that initial nitrogen surge, the microbes will scavenge it from the topsoil instead, and your first-year plants will yellow and stunt. Cover everything with at least 6 to 8 inches of good topsoil mixed with compost. Plant heavy feeders the first year, things like squash, tomatoes, cucumbers, and pumpkins, which thrive on the initial nutrient release. Water thoroughly the first season. After year 2, in most climates, you will not need to water again. Method 2. The biochar layer. Get clean, hardwood lump charcoal, the kind you find at grocery stores for grilling. Not briquettes, which contain binders and chemicals you do not want in your soil. Not lighter fluid-soaked products either. Crush the charcoal to roughly pea gravel size or smaller. If you want to make your own, the safest method is a simple top-lit burn in a steel drum with airflow holes near the base. Always do this outdoors, well away from any structures, and let the finished charcoal cool completely before handling. Now here is the step everyone skips, and it ruins their results. You must charge the biochar before you bury it. Raw charcoal is chemically hungry. Its enormous surface area will pull nutrients out of the surrounding soil for weeks until the surface charges saturate, temporarily starving any nearby plants. To charge it, soak the crushed biochar for at least 48 hours in something nutrient-rich. Diluted urine works extremely well, at roughly 1 part urine to 10 parts water. Compost tea, worm casting tea, or diluted fish emulsion all work too. Once charged, work the biochar into the top 6 to 8 inches of your bed at roughly 10 to 15% by volume. It will never break down. It will still be holding nutrients in that same spot in 100 years. Method 3. The metal pairing. Take 1 short length of copper, about 6 inches of pipe or heavy wire, and 1 galvanized nail or zinc-coated bolt. 1 pair per plant. This is a hard limit. More metal does not produce more growth. Excess copper harms beneficial soil organisms over time, and excess zinc accumulates to levels that stress plants. Push the copper into the soil on one side of the plant, the zinc on the other side, 8 to 12 inches apart and 6 inches deep. The moisture in the soil completes the circuit. A cheap digital multimeter pressed to the 2 metals should read somewhere between 0.5 volt and 1 volt. The galvanic current quietly works on nutrient ions in the soil, mobilizing minerals that would otherwise sit chemically bound and unavailable. Roots respond to electrical gradients, a phenomenon biologists call electrotropism, and tend to grow toward the copper side. The zinc slowly oxidizes and releases zinc ions into the root zone, which is useful because zinc is an essential trace mineral plants need to manufacture growth hormones. When the zinc nail is visibly corroded and your voltage drops below half a volt, swap in a fresh one. The copper will typically last for several seasons. Now stack them. The combined 3-layer system is where this video stops being interesting and starts being something you can actually build this weekend. Start with the foundation layer. Dig your trench. Lay your largest logs along the bottom, then smaller branches, then the green nitrogen layer. This is your water reservoir, your thermal mass, and your microbial fuel cell all in one. Over the next decade, the wood will slowly release water, heat, nutrients, and electrons into the layers above. Next is the biochar zone. Spread 4 to 6 inches of pre-charged biochar mixed with compost directly over the wood. This is your nutrient bank and your electrical bridge. The biochar will catch every nutrient ion released by the decomposing wood below, the dissolved minerals released by the metals above, and any compost or fertilizer you add later. It will hold all of it in the root zone for years. It will also conduct electrical activity better than ordinary soil, increasing the efficiency of everything happening above and below it. Finally, the root zone. Cap the bed with 6 to 8 inches of high-quality topsoil mixed with compost. Plant your crops. Install 1 copper-zinc pair per plant, 8 to 12 inches apart, 6 inches deep. The soil sandwiched between those metals is now a high-conductivity electrolyte rich with biochar, organic acids, and dissolved minerals. The galvanic current runs stronger than it ever could in plain dirt. Nutrients released by the chemistry are caught by the biochar below. Roots grow toward the copper through the electrically active zone. The system feeds itself from 3 directions at once. Now track your results. This is the difference between gardening folklore and something you can actually defend with data. Photograph each bed every week beside a measuring stick. Use a refractometer on your leaves every 2 weeks. Refractometers measure dissolved solids in plant sap, expressed in units called Brix. Brix readings are a direct indicator of plant nutrient density. Higher numbers mean a healthier plant that is also more pest-resistant. Many electroculture practitioners report Brix increases of 2 to 4 points within a single month of installing this system. Use a multimeter to spot-check the voltage between your copper and zinc every couple of weeks. Below half a volt, and your zinc probably needs replacing. Weigh your harvest at season end on a kitchen scale. And critically, run a control row right next to your experimental beds. Same soil, same sun, same water, same seeds, but no buried wood, no biochar, and no metals. Let the difference speak for itself. This is how backyard gardening becomes data. There is one final detail that puts the entire system into perspective. Dark earth soils in the Amazon have not just survived for 2,000 years, they have actively grown. Researchers studying these soils have documented that the biochar creates such favorable conditions for microbial life that the microbial community continuously pulls in fresh organic matter from the surface, breaks it down, and incorporates the carbon into the existing structure. The soil rebuilds itself faster than time can wear it down. That is the exact opposite of every commercial agricultural system on Earth, where each harvest depletes the ground and demands another bag of inputs the following spring. When you combine buried wood beneath charcoal, beneath an electrically active root zone, you are feeding the soil from below. At the same time, the surface biology feeds it from above. Carbon enters from 2 directions. Electricity is generated by both galvanic chemistry and microbial metabolism at the same time. Water cycles through the wood reservoir on demand. Nutrients cycle in a closed loop, caught and held by the charcoal instead of leaching out with the next rain. The system gets stronger every year it sits in the ground. There is a bigger picture here too. Every handful of biochar you bury is atmospheric carbon, pulled out of the sky by trees through photosynthesis, then converted into a form so chemically stable it will resist decomposition for thousands of years. The Amazonian civilizations were not just feeding their families, they were running the oldest and most successful carbon capture program on Earth, and the evidence is still under the rainforest floor today. The three-layer system does the same work in your backyard. You feed your garden and you bury carbon at the same time. Infinite energy is not a marketing slogan. It is a description of what soil actually does when you give it the right materials and then step out of the way. Wood decomposes and produces biological electricity for a decade. Charcoal holds charge and hosts microbial life for centuries. Copper and zinc generate galvanic current for years. And the entire community of organisms that lives in this stack continuously rebuilds the soil from the freely available inputs of rain, fallen leaves, and ambient mineral chemistry. No single battery runs forever, but a self-rebuilding system that uses the cheapest inputs nature provides comes about as close to forever as anything in our universe gets. The global fertilizer market is worth over $200 billion annually. The pesticide market adds another $60 billion. Both depend entirely on customers coming back every spring. A buried log is free. A bag of hardwood lump charcoal is a few dollars. A length of copper pipe and a single galvanized nail are pocket change. One installation that waters itself, heats itself, fertilizes itself, generates its own underground electricity, and produces more food every year it sits in the ground. The reason this is not taught in every agricultural school on Earth is not that it does not work. It is that it works too well and too permanently for an industry built on annual depletion and repeat purchase. The charcoal that indigenous Amazonian peoples buried before the rise of the Roman Empire is still producing food today. The buried woodbeds built by European farmers a generation ago are still moist and fertile without irrigation. Alexander Bain's earth battery still produces voltage anywhere in the world the soil is moist enough. Nathan Stubblefield's coil design still works if you build it. The physics has not changed. The chemistry has not changed. The biology has not changed. The only thing that ever changed was who was paying attention and who was paying for the conversation. You can build this for less than $10 in materials. The wood is free. The charcoal is a few dollars at the grocery store. The copper and zinc are scrap parts. The science has been documented for almost 200 years. The proof has been visible in the Amazon for 2000. The only variable left in the experiment is whether you bury the first log this weekend. If this changed how you think about what dirt can do, share it with someone who grows things. The fastest way to dig up a buried science is to plant it in every garden on your street. Before you click away, you need to know that the system you just learned about pairs with one specific kitchen ingredient that supercharges the entire stack. When you stack the two methods together, your soil stops looking like garden dirt and starts looking like the floor of a primary forest. I broke down the full method in the next video, and it is sitting on your screen right now. Click it next and finish what we started here. The ground is patient. It remembers what you give it. Give it wood, charcoal, and metal, and it gives you decades. The harvest begins now.